what about the race win? Well, there was so much still unfolding between Max Verstappen trying to hang on to the two McLarens, and it changed a few times through the race. And this is really a great bit of work from Oscar, just pressurizing the four-time champ, the reigning champ, who doesn't make many mistakes, but he did make one on Sunday. And it just comes from pressure with the DRS now available for Oscar. And Max just simply brakes a little bit too late, a little bit too hard. He's starting to lose that left front tyre, and as we get to that braking zone, that is the tyre that's just on the edge of locking up, and he's just able to keep it from having a massive lock-up, just pumping the brakes slightly and releasing it to get that deceleration still to not go fully off. But that is Verstappen wide and Piastri through into second place, which gave us the chase at the front. And we can see that on the data as well, comparing Max and Max. One lap with Piastri a little bit further back, one lap with Piastri much closer, and you can just see the red spikes down here where Max is having to brake harder and later because he's now worried that Oscar might throw a lunge down the inside of him. Firstly, into turn 9, he's more aggressive and it actually compromises his exit there as well. But then he does the same thing where he eventually has the lock up, turn 11, bigger braking zone, Piastri's coming with DRS, and the difference in brake pressure is almost 50% more than Max does as he brakes a good chunk later as well, induces a lockup, and it's actually a classic case of just being under pressure, full position with DRS now available, and it's a rare lockup from Verstappen. It's a rare mistake, but he did well actually to not run all the way through to the gravel. But Piastri was up to second, and we had race on for the lead.
Heavy on the brakes, down from 180 miles per hour, and Verstappen is off! Verstappen goes deep!
And it was a great race out front between the McLarens, pushing each other so hard all the way. Team orders for a few laps just stifling Piastri's progress in the middle of the race. But nonetheless, as the rain started to fall late on, it was very much all to play for. And then they both make the same mistake at turn 12, but with massively different end results. Lando Norris still manages to get back on, wins the race. He's the early championship leader, and it was a super drive from Lando. But Oscar made a similar mistake, not much different, and he's down almost out of the race and back to 9th place. Really gutting for him on home soil. He blamed himself, but actually I've got a lot of sympathy here for Oscar. And we can pick this up now externally, looking at turn 12, and you can see both cars way off the road, Norris and then Piastri. But whilst Lando manages to get the car back on quickly to get the deceleration for turn 13, the tighter left-hander, Oscar is stuck out wide and he's bouncing across the grass, and he's just coming in from too tight an angle, and he can't get rid of the speed coming into that final corner. So he's just spinning. He's never going to stop it as the rain's falling. And on board we can see actually really clearly the difference in line is all it is here for Piastri. As he comes through, the rain starts to fall. It's really difficult. You're at the front of the race. You have no cues to know how quick to go through any corner. In fact, this is an absolute carbon copy of Malaysia 2001, which we can have a look at here, where both the Ferraris bombed it straight off the road in the middle sector as well when the rain started to fall. When you're the first cars, you have no reference for what to do. When you're the cars further back, you can start to see that it's slippery, others are finding trouble, and you can take off just that little bit of outright push. You can back it off by sort of 10, 15, 20% and just be cautious for a couple of corners. The top two are hammer and tongs, they're going at it. And as we join Piastri now bouncing through the gravel, it's really well held by both of them. But if I pause it there, you can see the line through the gravel that Lando's taken to get back on the road. And it's just that's enough to get him back on. And he's actually gone further off in the first place as well. So if we have a look at the data, you can see that, if anything, Norris is pushing more coming into the corner. He's carried more speed in, but because he's gone further off into the gravel, he's had bigger moments. He's got massive snaps of oversteer, you can see on this jagged line here. He's actually scrubbed a lot more speed off coming through the gravel, which has allowed him to go further off and then come back on at a better angle, whereas Oscar's gone off at a shallower angle, and then he's not managed to scrub the speed off, going back on the grass and having the moment. Trying to plan these things is really difficult when you're off the road and on the grass. To be honest, I think it's maybe a bit of luck for Lando at this stage, a bit of bad luck for Oscar, somewhere in between both. But yeah, very similar moment and massively different. Obviously a 23-point difference in the championship for them now. But even more than that, was the strategy implications for that, because what's impressive about Norris here is he's gone off, he's radioed very quickly to the team that he's gone off, and within 5 seconds they've called him in and he pits, and that really makes a difference to his Grand Prix to keep the win. So Norris pits, Verstappen stays out, as do a few others. So let's have a look if that was the right decision for Max and what Red Bull might have done differently to try and win this race. The key thing, as it turned out, was that Max went 2 laps longer than Lando. Had he gone 1 lap, it would have been really, really close. And we can see that on the data here. The yellow line is what would have happened had Max pitted the 1 lap after Lando pitted, and they would have come out pretty much side by side, according to our simulations, because Lando was taking a bit of time back on Max in the slippery final sector on his inters compared to Max's potential in-lap on the slicks. They would have been side by side, but most likely, because Lando had done 1 lap on the inters, he might have been able to sneak back through, but it would have been really close. And in hindsight, that would have been Red Bull's best option to try and win the race with a 1 lap overcut. The difficulty was, though, no one knew how long the rain was going to last, and Red Bull was stuck with 2 sectors of the track being pretty much dry, thinking actually maybe the rain's not going to be as bad as first thought, and they might not have to pit at all, in which case not only would they have come through and won the race, but it would have changed the race for many behind as well, who took the gamble even more so than Red Bull, which was the likes of Ferrari and Yuki Tsunoda as well. So a big change in the race as it turned out. For Verstappen, he managed to deal with it really well. For the others that still waited and waited and waited, like Ferrari and a couple of others, it really didn't pay off.
Yeah, we tried, of course, something else. It was about to work out, but yeah, I can't see the radar, of course, of how the weather is moving in. But even if we would have pitted with them a lap later, or the lap that I pitted, it would have always been P2 anyway, you know. So it didn't really matter, but it was fun to try and do something different.